Hi guys, thanks for logging back into my channel. Today, like the title suggests, I'm going to talk to you about something that is affecting the world at large now, which is our state of our mind, basically the mental capability to take on challenges in life. So, I'm sure all of us would have gone through a certain bit of depressed stages at various stages in our life, but we may not have brought termed it as depression, but of course we all would have gone through some kind of job losses, or probably some career losses, or some close friend, relative, family member that we've lost, whom we thought would be there with us for a very long time in our lives, or losing out on something like a health concern or something like that, which might have affected you. And trust you and me, I've gone through all of this. So I thought I needed to give you a brief before I start off with my experience, because that's just a warm up to what you're about to hear. So basically, for me to narrate my experience, I need to go back into my childhood days as well. So to put it in a couple of words, in short couple of words, my childhood was not very stable in terms of the relationship that I had with my family, or my school days were not that great. In fact, to put it short, it was quite hard. So cut to college days. I chose a degree which is Bachelor of Commerce, and a very commonly accepted degree. By parents and family members at large, because I didn't really know or understand as to what exactly I wanted to do with my life. I knew that I wanted to do something with my life, but I was never sure what that was, which is to an extent largely normal with kids even today, although there's a lot of exposure that they get through social media. Back in the day, of course, there was no social media. Internet used to run really slow, if you know what I mean. We didn't have the DSL today that we have today. We had the I don't know what it was called, but internet was generally slow. The information that we get from around the world to broaden our mind was very, very low and very dull. And I had a very limited friend circle. Post college, I was in a dilemma because now I've ended up doing a course. I've graduated from a course that I never really wanted to do. And I understood that I had absolutely no understanding in accountancy because the teachers were terrible in the college where I studied. So if you want to Google it up, you can Google it up. It comes under Mahatma Gandhi University. It was a college named Chinmaya Vidyapeeth, which was in Cochin. So the teachers kept changing one after the other. The education went bad, and more than anything else, there was nobody really to actually bring your attention to the books, or bring your attention to diagrams and numbers, the way a lot of people out there do today. And eventually I ended up scoring a very average in BCom, but I knew that I had still had to work. But I was not really sure whether that was my next step, whether to go to work was my next step after graduating. So I ended up spending a year all to myself and trying to figure out as to exactly what it is that I wanted to do next. And my parents gave me the freedom and the time for that. Thankfully, they helped me financially as well, so that was great. But at the same time, the truth was that I was very tired, and I was very distorted and very much disturbed with a lot of things that actually happened in my life up until the age of 20 or 21, because I was going through a lot of personal trauma, which, of course, for reasons, I cannot disclose all of them out for now. But yes, I had a very difficult upbringing, and I'm not talking about upbringing as in just within the family or within the closed doors of family, but in general, school life again was tough. The I think many people deal with difficulties and problems in their lives in very different ways. I've realized, and I was fortunate to have a very good friend back then named Nikhil. He was somebody who actually lost his mother at a very young age, about 9 or 10 years old, and he went through pretty much everything that even I went through in terms of the torture and the frustration and the problems and the bullying, in school. But I've always looked back to those days, and I figured that the way he dealt with things in life at that point of time and future on in his life were radically different from the way I dealt with. So, this is again connected to the topic that I'm talking about today, which is at large depression. These events that I was talking about in my school days led me to be very much of an introvert, not really sure about whether what I was doing was right or wrong. Because I think ultimately, at the end of the day, what is important is whether the decisions that you make are right or wrong, you should have the confidence to stand up to it and say, yes, this is my decision, or this is what I want to do in my life. So that didn't really happen in my life for a very long time up until recently. So, post the age of 21, I decided to enroll into an MBA program because that was the only thing I had to do, because I was sure that I didn't really, I mean, I already had wasted a year, and I didn't really want to, I didn't have the license to rather to go according one more year just the way I did. So I enrolled into MBA programs. I wrote the MAT examination. I scored pretty okay, and I got into a couple of universities. And one of the prestigious universities that I got into was the Alliance University, which was termed as the Alliance Business School back in the day, which had one campus in BTM layout. So that is still a very prestigious university. In fact, now today it's a couple of ranks higher than many other private universities in India. So I enrolled into their dual country program, which means the program was partly based in Singapore and then partly to be based in India. So what happened is, as soon as we were about to enroll, we understood that a lot of parents had complained regarding the huge costs of living and education, about 20 to 25 lakhs to be spent altogether for a 2 year program. So they decided to cancel the program, the dual country program, and they had the entire program happen just in India itself. So that's how I packed my bags from Cochin and moved to Bangalore to study. I always had it within myself that I was always doubtful as to whether this is the decision that I wanted to take, because everybody all around me, my fellow students, everybody was actually doing an MBA, and some of them had even uh, almost were about to graduate from an MBA, and here I was, unsure about what it is that I wanted to do next. My goals in life were very unclear, as to exactly what it is that I want to do in my early 20s. I mean, today, of course, kids are a lot more. They have the information as and when they need it, on their fingertips. But back then, it was a different case altogether. And a lot of that confusion led me to join the university and then leave it after 3 weeks. It was a fantastic program, no doubt about it. Even today, they have a fantastic placement, but I was always confused because I knew that I didn't want to really be on a sedentary job. I wanted to do something different, have some kind of an interesting thing for myself every day, which, sadly didn't happen, and up until now, it's not the case. But I had to adjust with it. After quitting the program, I was into the program for 3 weeks. After quitting the program, I traveled back to the Gulf where my family was, because that was my only option. I mean, they had pretty much lost the entire trust in me that I could actually end up, studying or doing anything productive in India. Over there, many a time, of course, I did decide I did want to come back to India and study, but of course, family restrictions were there because they were unsure as to whether I should keep doing something that I was unsuccessful at. Uh, I didn't believe them. I wanted to prove them wrong. So I started studying for various examinations. I knew I was terrible at accounting, but I wanted to prove a point, and I decided to take up the CMA, the Certified Management Accountant course, which is a very strong course and is equivalent to the Chartered Accountancy course in India. I couldn't go through it. I failed at that. My first two jobs were that of an accounting job as a junior accountant in two private firms, one which was an Egyptian owned and the other which was an Indian owned. I had the worst experience over there. I mean, I had a lot of issues with the managers over there. I didn't even know what I was doing because I was terrible in accounting. If you know about accounting, the way the accounts exam nowadays is that they have a theory part and then they have a mathematical part. So I used to always pass through the accounts exams just by, mugging up the verbal part, and then never used to get any of the answers correct for the mathematical part. So that's the kind of a situation. The only job opportunity that I had at that point of time in the Middle East was that of a junior accountant, which I hated myself. I hated the job. I hated what I was doing. I hated my day-to-day life. I pretty much hated everything about my life at that point of time. I mean, I didn't want to even go back home. My parents were lot more imposing, a lot of restrictions, for reasons best known to them. And in between all of this, I got seriously ill. So, like I said, I lost my job twice for accounts, and then I got seriously ill in the sense that I was having extreme pain in my joints. I could not, fold my legs and sit together, both the legs together for even 5 minutes, because that would really give me cramps on my knees, and I would not be able to then get up, Like for example, if you are inside a van which drops you to your workplace. I've experienced this. That's why I'm saying, like, I could not uh, fold my legs back together and sit for 5 minutes straight. Because if I did, I would be. I mean, there are several times when I really literally cried inside the van, and I really prayed for the journey to end as soon as possible because it was very painful. Nobody knew the reason for it. It lasted for close to about 2.5 years in my life, and it was one of the most for about 4 to 5 years of my life until at least 2013, I guess. Though those were the most difficult years of my life. I mean, health wise, I was going down. In terms of my career, I was going down. I didn't really know what it is that I wanted in my life. And of course, the relationships at home were not so great. I didn't have the personal freedom, and exploring yourself in the Middle East is like it's not a place where you can, many countries, most countries rather, are not places where you can actually explore or find yourself. For that, you need to come to India, to actually realize and have a good group of friends to hang out with and stuff like that. India was the best. But in the Middle East, my experience, I'm sorry to say this, I'm sure many people are there out there who are flourishing in the Middle East. And I've myself seen it. I mean, people who were younger than me, guys who were younger than me, being financially independent, having their own vehicle, renting their own apartment, being very good and very smart at their work. The biggest problem with my work front was that I was never able to make my bosses happy with my work. I always used to make some kind of error or the other, and I was never up to their mark. So whenever I kept shifting jobs and whenever jobs kept coming to me and my immediate boss would interview me, I always had in my mind, like, oh God, okay, this is the next guy who is going to fire me. So that was a level of lack of a confidence in myself, that actually made me think that, is it really worth living in life? Or is anything worth doing? I've several times I've contemplated suicide. I've gone to the beach side, I've sat there, I've had, my own emotional moments there. There are a lot of wrong things as well that I did at that time, which again we will come to in another video, or maybe not. But all this was a distraction, then it was all a distraction from what it is that I wanted to achieve. Because really, when somebody doesn't have a goal in his life and he keeps doing something monotonously, what happens eventually is you get dried up. You lose the sense of who you are or who you want to be ultimately. Because this was a completely unsuccessful phase in my life for a good 6 to 7 years, or maybe a few months less, but for a good 6 to 7 years, I was really unsuccessful. I attended a cabin crew interview because I really felt I should be some kind of a cabin crew in some airline, so that it would give me the freedom, I really wanted to fly and really be free. I wanted feathers to fly, literally. But of course, I attended two interviews, and at the very last round, you won't believe it, they let me go. I mean, this was for Qatar Airways and then for a local airline in the Gulf. So, I mean, of course, at that time I used to come back and cry, literally, like this was my one chance, because those interviews used to happen once in a year, once in about 6 months. And I was going for the interview at a time when I could not even stand one day at the place where I was working. And it was more like I want to get rid of this very next day and I want to join a cabin crew kind of a position. But somehow luck was never in my favor, and I was deeply, deeply, deeply depressed. Depressed from every angle. Every situation was working against me. I mean, my family, again, I totally understand where their agony comes from, because I was not successful and they knew it very well as well. And they had their own problems, because our relatives, their children were all very successful. They were all accountants, medical students, engineers, and all of that. And I saw my own school friends and people in school doing very well for themselves. In India, in Kuwait, in Dubai, in Bahrain, in Canada, wherever. So it was a very disappointing time. And cut to 2012, when I joined a new brand, a new company, things started getting a little more easier for me in life, because at general the company didn't really have much business. So my interaction with the bosses were a lot more lesser. Cut to probably 2015 or 16, and we came back to India, and this is where I started my job in the retail sector. So of course I did have challenges. I did have a lot of challenges at work, because I was being put into a position which was a senior most position in that company for that region. So it was more like, it was nothing like served on a platter for me. It was like, it just, they gave me the biggest position in the company for that region, and then said, you handle it. So as a result of this, there were a lot of ego issues. There were a lot of problems that I had, and with the staff of the company, the store staff basically, and they had issues with me as well. So there were a lot of challenges that I had to face, but I realized today that, of course, it would have been my life would have been much better if I wouldn't have faced those challenges and if I didn't have to go through the grind. But going through the grind again has put me in a very strong position where today I can say that, I don't give a damn about what you think, because ultimately my goals and my business targets are what are important to me. Even if my manager or my immediate boss today is not entirely happy with my work, I'm not really going to beg him or be his puppy, literally to get the position or the profile that I want, because that is against my character and my dignity to actually beg somebody or be on their side for getting, because I'm another thing is I really don't know how to do that. There are many people who actually do that, stick up to the boss and get the job done. Like they say, fake it till you make it. There are of course a lot of people that I know, in fact majority of people that I know are in that category, which I'm not, because I just don't know how to do it, and I don't have the mannerism or the patience to actually deal with bullshit from anybody, whether it is my boss or anybody else. But thankfully, at the job front, things have improved a lot for me. I have become a lot more proficient and a lot more better in my job, which has come through experience. But one thing that I want to tell throughout this is there are three things that can happen through depression. One is either you beat it by just by waiting it out, or you can ask a counselor for help. And the third way to do it is to distract yourself with something that is productive, distract yourself with something that you always wanted to do, and that is something that you will have to find out by yourself. Because the world today is very challenging. There are a lot of challenges out there for you, and there are always consistently people going to tell you to not do what you think is right. But ultimately, if you look at the big picture, you are the boss of your own life, and you will have to deal with things the way you think you should be dealing with it, irrespective of whether you're 18 years old or 50, whatever it is. You have to be in complete control of your life, and that is what I realized when I hit a certain age. That's what I realized, that unless and until I'm in charge of my own life, unless and until I have the financial and the mental freedom, in my life, there is no way that I'm going to ever be happy, because I was never happy all those years. I was never happy in my life because everything around me was going tuck, tuck, tuck. Everything was getting destroyed. I was never happy with anything that I did. The moment I started being a lot more independent, away from my family and stuff like that, is when I realized that that I do have goals, I can develop, I can grow. Again, talking about depression, I don't really understand as to exactly what it is that can drive a person to have so much confidence in themselves, so much courage in themselves to actually take their own lives. Because trust me, that's not something that I could easily do. And even in my weakest moment, I hope so. Even in my weakest moment, I hope and pray that I never do something like that, because that's not just going to affect you, that's going to affect a lot of people around you as well. And I don't want to die as somebody who was probably weak, in their mind. And I prefer to live, you know if you want to say, put it that way, I would prefer to live as somebody who had issues, who had problems, who struggled to resolve them. Whether that might have been successful or not is a different story altogether, but I lived through it. I don't want to die from it, from my problems. And that's one thing that I've always maintained. Everybody has issues in their own lives. Like one of my relative close friends, a long time back, disclosed that I feel very depressed in my life and I think I am going through depression, told me that you can be depressed, but ultimately it is your choice, largely, as to whether you want to feel depressed and you want the depression to overtake you, or you want to let it be, and you continue with your own life and keep working hard until you beat depression out of your life. But this isn't my case. I'm sure that in different cases it's different. Everybody's case is different. But one suggestion that I would always have for people who feel hopeless or who feel depressed is always seek help. Because today there's a lot of resource that you have. Even there are apps out there, medical apps, doctors apps out there, that can actually offer suggestions to you. Counseling is not a wrong thing, because I think everybody, probably in the US or in the UK or in developed countries in the world, counseling is a very normal thing. They even have them in schools and colleges. We are yet to get there, but this is just to say that it's a very normal thing to be counseled, and even to go through depression, because even the most luckiest or the most richest person in the world would have had challenges that he must have felt unable to overcome at some point of time in his life. So yeah, I mean, I hope my video was able to give you some insight into my life and some way understanding of what depression meant to me in my life. There is no clear-cut way that I can explain to you as to how I came out of it, because literally the only answer that I can give you when you ask me how I came out of it is the fact that time healed things, experiences have healed things, and and my work situation, which is radically changed from what it was before, has also healed me a lot. So, to an extent, I've learned myself that experience and time can actually be really good healers. So, if you have the guts, wait it out more than anything else. And always develop new relationships and maintain relationships that you have with people right now, because that is something that can really help you a lot. So, I guess the video is quite long, and I'm not sure if you would have seen until the end of this video. If you have, please do like, subscribe, because the purpose of the channel here right now is not just to get a lot of attention. I'm posting vlogs about my daily life because that's, I think, what many people would like to see, and many of you have sweetly messaged me as well for that. So that's what I'm making, and life in large can be very inspiring if you're open-minded. And that's what I want to prove through this channel, like, give the kind of confidence that I can give to anybody who feels low, who feels upset, because that is what is really important in these times. I mean, we're dealing with multiple problems here in 2020. So yeah, so now we have come to the end of this video, and if you've liked it, please do share, please do like as well. So until we see you in the next video, take care, bye bye.